there were these 2 years where I spent a lot of time on flights. I took about 350 flights in those 2.5 years. I checked with the stewardess, it's roughly about half of what they used to do. And that's when a long cherished dream of starting to write a book began to take shape. So I had the plot and the characters sort of going in my mind, and I attempted to put pen to paper, because in a flight you have no interruptions, no emails, no phone calls, nothing, right? This was also the time when I had a chance to revisit a mindfulness meditation practice that I had learned way back in my college days. And the combination of these two things, writing and mindfulness, helped unlock a lot of other things. And that's when I realized that through all the years that I had spent in the world of investments, I had found something kind of missing, like a missing piece of the jigsaw puzzle. I had this niggling feeling that there was more to me, hidden dimensions waiting to be uncovered. And through the process of writing and mindfulness, I began to discover what that was. And I began to realize that there is actually this whole huge reservoir of potential within us that actually lies untapped, and this, fast forward a few years later, I'm now on the verge of completing my third book. Hopefully it will be released in a few months. I run my own leadership coaching company, which is a significant change from the finance and strategy career that I had earlier, but there are a lot of similarities as well, which I'll talk about. And more importantly, I think I found passion, purpose and fulfillment, not without its struggles along the way. So what is this compass that can help us navigate through all these life choices and these questions? What is this compass? So think of, I don't know if you've seen this movie Cinderella Man. There is this line where one of the characters says, "My brains are for my job, my heart is for my family." And I pretty much thought that as well. And most of us go through our entire professional life, right from our education onward, focusing on the brain part of it. So Elon Musk was asked, "What has been your biggest hiring mistake?" And his answer was, "My biggest hiring mistake is that I focused on people's talents and not enough on their personality. I focused on people's brains and not enough on their heart." So what does that mean? Think of yourself like an iceberg. Your personality is like an iceberg. There's this part which is above the water, which is what we all, focus on and pitch ourselves on. And many of you will be in interviews a week from now, right? So we talk about our skills, concrete skills. We talk about our degree. We talk about our GPA. We talk about where we did our summers. And this whole part below the iceberg, we just don't focus on. So what are these parts which are below the iceberg? They are things like values. What are the things that are dear to you? What are the things that will remain the same whether you're in IIM Ahmedabad or Mars or in the Amazon rainforest? What are those things that you will stick to even if you have to incur a monetary loss? Those are your values. What are your motives? What gives you meaning? What drives you? What gives you purpose? So these are the parts below the iceberg, and we spend very little time focusing on it. Kabir Das had a famous line which goes, "Ichha kaya, ichha maya, ichha jag upjaya." It's like your inner core creates your outer reality. And 80-90% of the outcomes that you'll have in your life, whether personally or professionally or financially, are going to be dependent on what you do with this inner core. And this was the realization that I had, that this is what actually helps you navigate through a lot of life choices. So, you may say, fine, this is all theory. Abhi isse mujhe fayda kya hone wala hai? What am I going to do with this information, right? This is all theoretical, right? How is it going to help me next week or whatever, next month or next year? So maybe I'll break it down into a few pointers that you can use, right? So the first thing I would say is explore, explore, explore. Nothing meaningful in life is ever done without a lot of exploration. So, not just read a lot of books and listen to a lot of podcasts, but meet a lot of people, make a lot of friends, travel around the world, backpack if you can. When you meet people, ask them about what they do for a living, find out what drives them, find out what makes them tick. And you will be surprised. These things may sound disjointed, but you will be surprised how the dots connect. I don't know if any of you guys have watched the Steve Jobs video of a speech he gave where he talks about how he learned calligraphy when he was in college. And many years later, that came of use when he designed the fonts of the Mac. You know, for me, it was no different. I did my electrical engineering like a lot of folks. I, bowed out respectfully and did my MBA after that and forgot all about electrical engineering. Interestingly, a few years back, maybe 5 years back, when I was writing my second book, Agniban, all of that came back to me because this Agniban, the plot focuses on electronic warfare, and an idea I remembered vaguely reading about superconductors when I was in college, and I remembered reading later about something called high temperature superconductors. And the plot in Agniban actually partly revolves around how high temperature superconductors can be used for electronic warfare. So you don't know how the dots will connect, but as Steve Jobs said, and Steve Jobs actually said this, that you call it universe, karma, whatever, but trust that the dots will join. So I did my first meditation camp when I was back at IIT. We were a bunch of, I think third year students. We were told there's this very beautiful place near Jaipur, free food, free lodging, let's go 10 days. And it was 10, transformational days of complete silence. Many, many years later, when I was taking those 350 flights, meditation gave me ideas for my book. And interestingly, the last now 9 odd years that I've been meditating, I've actually learned far more about investing. And many of you here are from the Finance Club. I've learned far more about investing in these 9 years of meditation than in the preceding, 17 odd years of being in the world of investments. Many of you might have read Ray Dalio's book, Principles. So Ray Dalio is a famous investor, and he meditates every day. And he talks about how meditation can help you stay objective and remove some of the biases that prevent you from being a good investor. So explore, explore, explore. Now, this advice may seem a little counter to some of the other stuff that one hears. So there's this incident apparently when Bill Gates and Warren Buffett first became friends. Bill Gates' father got 20 people in a room and asked them to write on a chit, not look at each other, and write on a chit what's made them successful. And do you know that Bill Gates and Warren Buffett both came up with the same answer? The answer was focus. So the question is, you're saying explore, explore, explore on the one hand. On the other hand, people are talking about focus as being the thing that's made them successful. How do you reconcile this dichotomy? So here's the thing. You will not know what to focus on until you have explored and had those life experiences. You need to find what drives you, and to do that, it's not going to happen in a vacuum. Arnold Schwarzenegger credits his success to the fact that, and he says that, in my early days, I was far more hungry for success than any of my competitors. And he says, I knew the thing that I wanted to succeed in, and I just went after that. Again, to know the thing that you want to succeed in, you have to explore, explore, explore. So this famous scientist was asked, how do we make our kids more intelligent? And he replied, if you want your kids to be more intelligent, read them fairy tales. If you want them to be more intelligent, read them more fairy tales. So I'm going to ask you a question. Do you have any idea who this scientist might be? Sorry? It's about intelligence. It's a question about intelligence, right? Arguably the most intelligent scientist ever. Sorry? Einstein, yes. And you get a copy of my second book, Agniban. So, there's a lot of research been done on creativity and innovation by this Harvard professor, Clayton Christensen. And Clayton Christensen's conclusion was that association is one of the main drivers of creativity and innovation. Association means the ability to connect things which are seemingly unconnected. So, focusing too early, trying to narrow down, isn't that great an idea. You need to diverge first, experience the world, and then converge later on. So the convergence stage is when the focus question gets asked, and you're at a stage where I think you can afford to explore, explore, explore. Just a few anecdotes about my books. So I got the idea for my first book, Kalkut, through various disconnected type happenings. So I was in Vietnam, work took me there. I had gone to what's known as the Cu Chi tunnels. Have any of you been there? So Cu Chi tunnels is where the warriors during the Vietnam War used to hide during the day and then surface during the night and carry out attacks. And you can actually go crawl through those tunnels. And so I, went there, and as a tourist in one of the tunnels where it was allowed, I crawled through. And you're on all fours. There's no space to literally get up. You can't even straighten your knee, nothing. And then halfway through the tunnel, a huge bout of claustrophobia hit me. And for a second I panicked until I realized, look, you're halfway through the tunnel. You can only crawl. You better crawl your way out. And somewhere I had this other thought going in my mind that, hey, this is a nice plot for a climax of a book. And so that scene. It's not set in Vietnam in the book, but that scene finds its way into the last part of Kalkut. I've given away some of the plot, but not a lot of it. I was, another instance, I was actually not far from Ahmedabad. I was looking to inspect a road that we were looking to invest in when I was working with Macquarie. Macquarie had a large infrastructure fund, still has a large infrastructure fund for India. I was going to inspect this road, and I saw this small little sign which says Lothal. And I got reminded of all the history textbook stuff from grade 6 or whatever about Indus Valley civilization. And I asked the driver to take a detour and go to Lothal. And I go there, and this place is in ruins. In fact, very little is actually visible. But apparently this was one of the world's oldest ports. And just, double back 4,000, maybe 5,000 years. And I was just thinking, this place, which is desolate right now, must have been literally bustling with activity, almost like the center of the world. I don't know if you guys have seen the last scene in Titanic, where they show the ship, which is under the sea and desolate, and then they go back to what it must have been, in its heyday. And I had some similar sort of epiphany, and that's when it struck me that I can have a thriller which has a modern day angle and a historical angle to it. And actually both of my books are, they draw this sort of parallel between something that's happening today and something that happened a long time ago. Third inspiration, I was looking for a really desolate place in the Himalayas for the last part of my book, Kalkut. And I traveled to this place in Sikkim, and on the way, the driver was stuffing the car with a lot of veggies, and I asked him, what are you doing? And he said, sir, ye aapka khana hai, kyunki wahan pe to kuch milega nahi. So, and then I went to this place. Lodge is probably a charitable name for the place. But I was literally the only guy. So there was me and there was this attendant. And I must say, for some time, I don't know if you guys have seen Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock. So, for some time, something about the scenario reminded me of Psycho. And again, so inspiration, creativity, all of that comes from doing things, traveling, meeting people, making friends, exposing, broadening your horizons. So if you have a choice between two jobs, one of which pays you more and one which offers you more learning and exposure, please choose the latter. Because there is absolutely no substitute for exploring, discovering, and dreaming. You must have heard this quote, 20 years down, you will be more disappointed by the things that you didn't do rather than the things that you have done, right? So explore, explore, explore. Second pointer for you, sure, exploring is great, but that's not enough. You need to explore mindfully. What does that mean? It means when you explore and do different things, try to get a grip of what it does to you. You attend a pre-placement talk by a company, you do a summers in a company, you just see a company presenting or interviewing you even. I mean, it's not only them evaluating you, you're also evaluating them, right? So, find out what makes them tick, find out which part of that resonates with you. What inferences can you draw about your own values? Do you like to hang out with people who are nice and compassionate? Do you like to hang out with people who are creative? What if the creative person is not compassionate? How does that make you feel? There's no right answers here, to each his own, right? So get an idea of what, as you explore in the outside world, explore your inner world as well. Tune into your inner compass. You'll also get insights about your motives and your purpose. Do you feel excited at the prospect of climbing Mount Everest? Do you feel excited at the prospect of maybe managing 1,000 people as a CEO of a company? Or do you instead feel excited at the prospect of 5 people sitting in a room somewhere managing a $20 billion hedge fund? Some of you in organizational psychology would have read about this, right? NAC, achievement motive versus power motive. Just find out what energizes you, what drains you. That will give you a good idea of your purpose. It will give you a good idea of what drives you, right? What are your beliefs? Do you believe that the world is a tough place and each man his own? Or do you believe that the world is fundamentally a kind place and there's goodness in people? Do you believe that hard work always pays? Or do you believe that, hard work doesn't always pay? You got to really promote yourself. Again, no right answers, but find out what is your inner compass. These are the various elements that come together to form your personality. Going back to what Elon Musk said, right? It's beyond just your talents, because all of you are bright. When you start a company, you'll be competing against companies run by equally bright people. They're all people with similar degrees, similar talents. But what makes the crucial difference is your personality, and if and when you guys start a company, the personality of the company, the culture of the company, that also makes a difference. So tune into your inner compass. Many great folks have done that. Steve Jobs famously came to India sometime backpacking in his early days before he started Apple. He went to the ashram of Neem Karoli Baba. And he credits that visit to him being able to firm up some of his thoughts about life and what he wanted to do. And that eventually led to him starting Apple. Right? Many years later, when Mark Zuckerberg, wanted to reconnect with Facebook's mission, apparently Steve Jobs suggested to him, why don't you go journey there? It's not about the place. It's not about this outer journey. It's about this inner journey. And what happens when you tune into this inner compass is that you'll no longer actually depend on outside sources for inspiration. Answers to most of your questions are within you. Should I go for the job which offers more money, or should I go with the job which offers XYZ something else? Should I pursue my passion or wait for a few years? Should I start a company today? Should I start it 4 years later? Join big company, join small company. All of these things, none of these things have a unique answer. You'll have to figure out what answer works for you. Different strokes for different folks. So as you tap into yourself, you will then discover true inspiration. And that's when you can get closer to basically manifesting your own reality. Third pointer, your relationship with failure. So most of you must be toppers in your respective schools, colleges, etc. before you came here. And in India, we have this big problem. We are taught to shun failure. We are taught to fear failure. Maths में 95% आ गए तो लोग पूछते हैं बाकी 5% कहाँ कटे? That's the first question you get asked. Right? So we are taught to fear failure. The funny thing, actually failure is the single biggest stepping stone for success. Yeah, this is not me, this is Mark Zuckerberg's words, right? Let me ask you guys a question. So this actor, Indian actor, was rejected multiple times because of his baritone voice. And then he went on to become successful. Amitabh Bachchan, you're not getting a prize though, you already got it. Another one. This Hollywood actor was broke, doing C-grade movies, sleeping on the streets, ran out of cash, had to sell his dog. Sorry, somebody there got it. Sylvester Stallone, yes. So, before Rocky became a smashing hit, here's your copy, it's signed, yeah. So, so failure, right, is the stepping stone to success. You must have heard the story of Lincoln, how he lost like election after election before finally becoming the president. Failure is one thing. There's another thing, which is rejection. Again, quick question. I have no more books to give out, but this author was again broke, single mom, sat in a coffee shop with her toddler writing her first, yes, J.K. Rowling's, yeah. So, rejection after rejection. I read this quote somewhere, and as an author, I can empathize with it. It says, being an author and expecting not to be rejected is like being a boxer and expecting not to get punched. So, I thought that was a good line. All of us will get punched in life. That's a certainty. It's how you react to it that will make the difference. Right? Adversity is another big teacher. Elon Musk is famous for saying that becoming an entrepreneur is like eating glass and staring into the abyss, right? Each one of us is going to face adversity. And you've heard the famous story of this Indian cricketer who in his first debut series against Pakistan got his face smashed, and his captain said you can leave, and he said main khelega. Anybody? Who is it? Sachin, right? Exactly. So whether you say main khelega when adversity hits you, or whether you just leave for the pavilion, depends on whether you've discovered your inner compass, your sense of purpose. If you're driven by your purpose, you will not quit. And this happens in all professions. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, one of the most famous investors, passed away not long ago. And one of probably his biggest hit was Titan. And you look at the Titan share price chart, and many of you are from the finance club, I'm sure you would have seen it. Titan many times has had falls of 40-50%. He must have had the nerve to hold through all those falls. Each one of you will face similar falls in your trajectory, whether it's career, personal life, whatever. You need to have clarity about your inner purpose so that you can last through that. Another thing, as you go about this, you will encounter naysayers. There will be people who will tell you why this won't work. It's like, hey, finance say you're going to write a book, who's even going to buy it? Or, hello, why are you starting this leadership coaching company now? People will ask all sorts of questions. And there's this study that I saw of people, the biggest regret that they had on their deathbed. And one of the top 3 regrets was, I should have listened less to what other people said and listened more to myself, right? So that's the thing with naysayers. They say you will attract criticism. The only way to avoid, there is one way to avoid criticism. Any of you can guess what that is? Sorry? Not trying. Yeah. It's to say nothing, do nothing, and be nothing. If you can do these 3 things, you will avoid all criticism, right? Otherwise, criticism is a given. There's this famous saying, right? First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. So that's the same with naysayers. A 4th pointer for you all, embrace mastery. There's, this saying, I'm sure you've all heard of it, fake it till you make it. But that's not how the truly great people have actually made their name. So Jim Carrey apparently was born to a poor family. They used to live in a trailer. He and his brother used to work 8 hours a day during school, after school in a tire company as janitor, security guard, whatever. He actually quit high school to focus on his career, to focus on mastering the craft of being a comedian. And he actually, is famous for saying that if it was not for my acting career taking off, I would still be working in, a tire or a steel mill in Ontario, Canada. Agatha Christie was supposed to be so good at her, she was so good at what she did that in 1976, when a girl who was, having strange symptoms was brought to a hospital, the nurses remembered the symptoms of thallium poisoning from one of Agatha Christie's books, and that's how the girl's life got saved. And there's another anecdote. Apparently, Agatha Christie asked someone, I need to really talk to an expert on Mesopotamian pottery. Do you know who that would be? And the person replied, that person is you, because you have become an expert. So, the truly great folks have mastered their craft. And mastering has 2 parts to it. One part is compounding, which is chip away slowly and steadily. There is, again, Kobe Bryant, basketball player. Many of you would have seen his games, right? He apparently used to set himself simple targets. This year, master dribbling. Next year, master shooting. And he said, I got better year after year, day after day, until finally I could do whatever I wanted. So that's the power of compounding. Work slowly, chip away. And, there is this interesting anecdote. Apparently, Jeff Bezos asked Warren Buffett that your method is so simple and you're the richest man in the world. At that time, he was the richest man in the world. And he asked, why don't others copy you? And Buffett's answer was, well, because most people don't want to get rich slow. Most of us don't want to get rich slow. We want the shortcut, we want the hack. And somewhere in the process, you realize years have gone by and you might as well have focused that time on becoming a master at what you do anyway. So embrace mastery. And once you do this, magic starts happening. It happened with me with my book. Initially, I would write sporadically, then I started writing daily. Then there would be some days when I would stare at a blank screen but still put in the effort. And after a while, I realized the words just started coming to me. It's almost like I didn't even have a role in it. It's like, something out there is just feeding the words into you. And this happens when your subconscious mind is also at play. You must have all heard, the subconscious mind has vast potential. We use an infinitely small portion of our brains. We use more of left brain, which is the logical part. This is euphemistic, than the right brain, which is the part that relies on creativity and intuition. But as you chip away, and as you spend that time every day doing deep work, you will realize that your subconscious mind comes into play. You might have heard of this scientist Kekulé, who discovered the structure of benzene. It came to him in a dream because his subconscious mind was still at play. Paul McCartney, the song Yesterday, you guys have heard the song Yesterday, All My Troubles Seem So Far Away, came to him in a dream. There's this other funny story about this Samuel Taylor Coleridge, the author of Ancient Mariner, who got a whole poem in a dream. He woke up and tried to write it, and halfway, he'd written half of it, and then somebody knocked on the door and he forgot the rest. So this poem, Kubla Khan, is still an unfinished masterpiece. So coming back to it, focus on mastery. Don't get carried away with hacks and shortcuts and fake it till you make it. Focus on mastery, and you will not just realize external success, but you will just become so good at your craft that success will follow you. I'll end with one last pointer, which is the power of relationships. As you tune into your inner compass, you will also find something interesting happening, which is you will become more authentic in your relationships with others. The main barrier to people, sort of finding fulfillment in their personal lives and in their relationships is that the main barrier is that they come with a lot of their own personal baggage. As you tune into your inner compass, some of that baggage clutter gets cleared up. And then you can be genuinely authentic, genuinely compassionate, genuinely giving, and genuinely cherish these relationships. And this may seem a little, not so relevant for you right now. And, the campus is a great time to make a lot of these bonds. But, as you grow older, you lose touch with people, work takes you places, travel takes you places, family priorities take over. And somewhere you just lose time. But even after that, whenever you meet your batchmates, it will be no different from, many years ago when you used to hang out outside the coffee shop or, chai shop near your campus. So there was a Harvard study on happiness across many decades, and one of the main findings was one of the main drivers of happiness is the quality of the relationships that you have. So, as time passes, I have zero doubt about this. All of you will be successful. Some earlier, some later, but every single one of you is going to be successful. But over time, money will lose its allure. The toys that money can buy will lose their allure. Success will lose its allure. But what will remain are your relationships with your friends, with your family, and with yourself. Yeah, thanks. Thank you.